Ah, Woolworths. Just hearing the name brings back memories of a simpler time. A time when shopping was an adventure, and a visit to the high street felt like stepping into a treasure trove of toys, sweets, and everyday bargains. Woolworths wasn't just a store. It was an institution, a part of everyday life for millions across the UK. For many, it was the first place they experienced the thrill of buying something special with their pocket money, whether it was a Matchbox car, a Barbie doll, or those infamous pick-and-mix sweets. But then one day, it was gone. Vanished almost overnight. The red and white signage that had been a staple of British retail for decades disappeared, and with it, a piece of British culture. So, what really happened to Woolworths? How did this beloved retail giant go from a peak of over 1,000 stores to complete collapse? Join me as we take a journey through the rise and fall of Woolworths and uncover the shocking truth behind its demise. The story of Woolworths actually began across the Atlantic in America. In 1879, Frank Winfield Woolworth opened his first five-and-dime store in Utica, New York. The idea was simple: sell almost anything at incredibly low prices and make a profit by selling in high volumes. In an era when most people couldn't afford luxury goods, this concept was a game changer. It wasn't about fancy displays or high-end service. It was about offering everyday items at prices everyone could afford. The concept proved to be a massive hit, and before long, Woolworths became one of the most recognizable retail names in the United States. By 1909, the British chapter of Woolworths began. The first store opened in Liverpool, and it didn't take long for the British public to embrace this new shopping experience. The concept of fixed low prices and a wide range of products, from toys and homewares to toiletries and food, was revolutionary at the time. Families who had once struggled to afford small luxuries suddenly had access to a store where a few pennies could stretch a long way. Woolworths became a place where people from all walks of life could go to find something special, no matter how small. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Woolworths expanded rapidly. New branches were opening every year, and by 1930, there were already more than 400 Woolworths stores across the UK. By 1939, that number had almost doubled to over 700. It wasn't just about selling products. Woolworths was creating an experience. The stores were bright, open, and welcoming. They were designed to encourage browsing, with items displayed on open shelves rather than locked behind counters. Customers could wander through the aisles, picking up whatever caught their eye. It was a far cry from the more rigid, traditional shopping experiences of the time, and it was revolutionary. Woolworths became a symbol of a more accessible consumer culture. The post-World War II era saw the British economy boom, and Woolworths was perfectly placed to take advantage of the growing demand for consumer goods. In the 1950s and 1960s, as rationing ended and living standards rose, Woolworths continued to thrive. The store offered everything from toys and vinyl records to household goods and school uniforms. For kids, it was a place of excitement and discovery. For parents, it was a reliable destination for everyday essentials. Woolworths became an integral part of family life, with generations growing up alongside it. In the 1960s, Woolworths was at the height of its success. The chain had more than 1,100 stores across the UK, making it one of the largest and most recognizable retailers in the country. The store became synonymous with variety. Unlike other retailers that specialized in one particular area, Woolworths had something for everyone. It was a place where you could find toys, music, books, stationery, sweets, and much more, all under one roof. It wasn't just about the products, it was the atmosphere. The hustle and bustle of a busy Woolworths store, the friendly staff, and the joy of finding that perfect little something all contributed to the store's charm. However, by the 1980s, the winds of change began to blow. Woolworths, once a pioneer of retail in the UK, started to face new challenges. After decades of success, the company's American parent, the F.W. Woolworth Company, decided to sell off its British arm. In 1982, Woolworths UK was acquired by Kingfisher plc, a British retail group that also owned B&Q and Comet. At first, this seemed like a fresh start, a new chapter for the iconic chain. But over time, it became clear that Woolworths was struggling to adapt to the changing retail landscape. As new competitors emerged, the market around Woolworths began to shift. Supermarkets started selling a wider range of non-food items, and specialist stores like HMV and Toys R Us began to dominate their respective niches. Woolworths, with its broad but unfocused product range, began to look increasingly irrelevant. It was no longer the go-to store for everything. It was just another retailer. As the high street became more crowded with options, Woolworths struggled to stand out. The 1990s and early 2000s saw Woolworths attempt a number of reinventions. New store formats were trialed, including large out-of-town megastores under the Big W brand. These stores offered huge ranges of goods in retail parks, but they weren't successful. The Big W stores were too expensive to run, and they often found themselves competing against supermarket giants like Tesco and Asda, who could sell similar products at a lower price. The chain also failed to modernize its core stores, which became increasingly dated and tired-looking. One area where Woolworths still held a strong position was in entertainment. For years, it was one of the UK's largest retailers of CDs, DVDs, and video games. The famous record racks were a mainstay of the store, and Friday night queues for the latest. Single release became a cultural phenomenon. But as technology advanced and music and movies went digital, Woolworth's dominance in entertainment began to falter. The rise of iTunes, piracy, and later streaming services completely changed the landscape. The record chart walls that had once been legendary were now little more than a reminder of a bygone era. By the mid-2000s, Woolworths was struggling to maintain relevance. In 2001, the company was spun off from Kingfisher and floated on the stock exchange. But independence brought its own set of challenges. The company found itself burdened with debt and facing a difficult retail environment. While its competitors embraced online shopping and modernized their stores, Woolworths remained stuck in the past. Its stores were aging, its product range was unfocused, and its image had become outdated. The final blow came in 2008. The global financial crisis hit, and Woolworths was in no position to weather the storm. As consumer confidence plummeted, so did Woolworths' already fragile finances. With mounting debts and suppliers demanding upfront payment, the company was left with no way out. In November 2008, administrators were called in, and just before Christmas, the company announced the closure of all 87 remaining stores. The timing couldn't have been worse. It was a devastating blow for the staff and shoppers alike. By early January 2009, the last Woolworths stores had closed their doors. More than 27,000 people lost their jobs, and high streets across the UK were left with gaping holes where the familiar red signage once stood. It felt as though a part of British culture had vanished overnight. For many, it was the end of an era. But despite its demise, Woolworths is still remembered with enormous affection. Ask anyone who grew up in the UK before 2009, and they'll have their own Woolworths story to tell. Whether it was the thrill of filling a paper bag at the pick and mix counter, buying their first CD, or scrambling through the shelves of toys, books, and stationery, Woolworths was a place where memories were made. It was more than just a store. It was a part of life. Woolworths was the victim of changing times, a failure to adapt to modern retail, fierce competition, and the financial crisis, all combining to create a perfect storm. While the stores may be gone from our high streets, the legacy of Woolworths lives on in the hearts and memories of those who grew up with it. It's a reminder of a time when shopping was more than just a transaction. It was a shared experience, a sense of community, and a moment of joy. Did this take you on a nostalgic journey? Do you have your own Woolworths memories? Maybe you remember buying that first toy or standing in line for a CD? Let me know your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more nostalgic tales from the past that shaped the world we know today.